Hi, my name is Rayanne Becerra, and today I'll be discussing the effects of the economic boom in China in the 1980s and the widespread of STDs among sex workers in China. I've always found the idea of sexually transmitted diseases to be pretty interesting. I think because it can really affect anybody, especially young people who they tend to think that nothing bad can happen to them or that they're going to live forever, and they end up making reckless decisions, these decisions that can last a lifetime, really. During the 1980s, China reported a rapid boom in their economy. This resulted in a vast expansion of China's sex industry, which led to a rapid spread of sexually transmitted diseases, and more specifically, hepatitis. As a result, female sex workers are the main sample of this research. The main study is identifying the prevalence and the risks associated with hepatitis and STDs in China. So the connection that I found between the exposure and the disease process was as China began to grow economically, they began to also be more open, have more open attitudes towards commercial sex. That, plus the fact that they had a higher disposable income, solicitation of female sex workers began to increase. When the sex trade began to increase, this led to an increase in the STDs. So the methods that were used to collect data was the scientists basically just used electronic bases to search for studies between the years of 2000 and 2001. And these studies stated that hepatitis and sexually transmitted disease were actually reported among sex workers. After all the data was collected, they used meta-analysis to determine the prevalence for each infection. So out of the 603,647 female sex workers in over 29 cities within China, it was reported that 10.7% of the women reported having hepatitis B and hepatitis C. HPV was considered the most prevalent, followed by herpes, chlamydia, and then gonorrhea. When they compared the results to the general population of China and the female sex workers, it showed that there was an increased rate of STDs among the female sex workers. And over the 11 years that the study was conducted, female sex workers showed a sustained prevalence in STDs. The scientists, again, they wanted to identify the prevalence and the risk associated with getting hepatitis and STDs. The results of the research that they conducted proved that risky behavior, such as being a sex worker, was associated with a higher prevalence of getting an STD. The research concluded by stating that more surveillance and interventions should be done to prevent and protect female sex workers. They didn't really go into what exactly that meant, but I would say the number one thing would have to be education. Teaching these women about protection, about STDs itself, about how even if it's just one time of unprotected sex or just one bad decision can really last a lifetime. So educating these women and providing them services that they can come and get tested and come and get protection, get help, take classes, stuff, just education in general. So the last thing I want to say is just a little bit about why I chose this article. I had mentioned before that sexually transmitted diseases is an interesting topic for me. Um, I think it's safe to say that we all will be sexually active at one point in our lives, and being educated about it makes the world of difference. This article was addressed or was used female sex workers as the main sample, but I really think that this goes for the whole population as well, because knowing about protection and knowing about the risks involved by having unprotected sex, or even just sex in general, um, can really help to decrease the chances of getting an STD. A lot of people don't understand that sex is considered many different things. And they think that because they're not having intercourse that they're safe, but that's not always the case. And so I found that this article was very well written and very informative, and I think that more studies should be done and more education should be spread to not just female sex workers, but the entire population as a whole.